Winston Churchill, the Lion of Britain. A historical story in 4 parts. Part 1. The Boy Who Refused to Be Small. Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill was born on November 30th, 1874, in the grand halls of Blenheim Palace, England. The palace itself whispered of greatness, high ceilings echoing with the footsteps of history, walls heavy with portraits of warriors and statesmen. Yet no one who looked at the small, restless boy could have imagined that he would one day carry the fate of a nation on his shoulders. His father, Lord Randolph Churchill, was a powerful politician, brilliant, cold, and distant. His mother, Jenny Jerome, was elegant, American-born, and often absent, moving through the glittering social circles of Europe. Young Winston grew up surrounded by luxury but starved of affection. The loneliness shaped him early, carving a hunger in his heart, not merely for love, but for recognition. At school, Winston was a disappointment. Teachers complained he was slow, careless, and rebellious. He struggled with Latin and mathematics, and discipline was a constant battle. Other boys mocked him. Authority figures doubted him. More than once he was told plainly, "You will never amount to much." Those words burned into him like a brand. But what teachers failed to see was the fire behind his eyes. Winston possessed a vivid imagination and an unbreakable will. He read history not as dusty facts, but as living drama. He admired warriors, kings, and leaders who defied odds. Somewhere deep inside, a promise took shape. I will not be forgotten. Rejected by elite academic paths, he entered the Royal Military College at Sandhurst, barely passing. Even then, critics dismissed him as mediocre. But Winston had learned an early lesson. Failure did not mean the end. It meant preparation. As a young officer, he sought danger deliberately. He believed courage was not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. He fought in India, Sudan, and South Africa. During the Boer War, he was captured as a prisoner. Many would have accepted their fate, but not Winston. He escaped. Crossing hostile territory alone, hungry and hunted, he refused to surrender. When he finally reached safety, newspapers across Britain celebrated him as a hero. For the first time, the nation spoke his name. Winston Churchill tasted fame, and he wanted more. Yet beneath the applause, tragedy struck. His father died young, broken by illness and disappointment, never seeing his son's future greatness. Winston carried this wound for the rest of his life. He often believed he would also die young. That belief fueled his urgency. He wrote, spoke, and acted as if time itself were chasing him. He turned to politics with fierce determination. His speeches were bold, sometimes reckless. He changed political parties more than once, earning criticism and distrust. Rivals called gaunt and dangerous. Friends warned him to slow down. But Churchill never slowed down. By the early 20th century, he had already tasted power and disgrace. He made brilliant decisions and catastrophic mistakes. One such mistake during World War I cost thousands of lives and forced him out of government. The nation turned its back on him. Once again he stood alone. This time the fall was deeper. Yet history was not finished with Winston Churchill. As Europe drifted toward darkness and a new war loomed, Churchill saw what others refused to see. While leaders preached peace, he warned of tyranny. While politicians closed their eyes, he studied the enemy. He waited. And when the storm finally broke, Britain would need a man who knew defeat, fear, courage, and stubborn hope. A man who had failed and survived. The boy who was once told he would never matter was about to face his greatest. Part 2. The darkest hour begins. By the late 1930s, Europe stood on the edge of catastrophe. Adolf Hitler had risen in Germany, swallowing nations one by one while the world watched in uneasy silence. Many leaders believed appeasement could buy peace. They signed papers, shook hands, and convinced themselves that war could be avoided. Winston Churchill did not believe them. From the backbenches of Parliament, ignored and ridiculed, he warned again and again that tyranny never stops when fed. His speeches were met with discomfort. People were tired of war. They wanted calm, not prophecy. Then, in September 1939, Germany invaded Poland. The illusion shattered. Britain declared war, but chaos followed. Military failures mounted. The Prime Minister resigned. The nation trembled as enemy forces swept across Europe. France collapsed. Belgium fell. The British Army was trapped at Dunkirk. In May 1940, at Britain's lowest moment, Winston Churchill was called upon to lead. He was 65 years old, overweight, stubborn, and controversial. Many doubted him. Some feared him. Yet there was no one else who understood the gravity of the moment as he did. On his first day as Prime Minister, Churchill knew the truth. Britain stood alone. The army was weak. The navy was stretched. The air force was untested. Across the Channel, Hitler prepared to strike. Invasion was not a question of if, but when. Churchill addressed Parliament with brutal honesty. "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat." There were no promises of quick victory, no comforting lies, only resolve. Behind closed doors, pressure mounted to negotiate with Hitler. Some ministers believed surrender might save lives. Churchill listened, but refused. He understood something fundamental. A nation that surrenders its soul survives only in name. As bombs began to fall on British cities, fear gripped the population. Families slept in underground stations. Children were evacuated to the countryside. Smoke darkened the skies of London. Yet every evening, through radio waves crackling with urgency, Churchill spoke to his people. His voice became a weapon. Part the three: blood, toil, tears, and sweat. The Battle of Britain began in the summer of 1940. German planes filled the skies. Night after night, cities burned. Homes turned to rubble. Churches collapsed. Thousands died. Churchill walked among the ruins. He saw destruction with his own eyes. He spoke to survivors whose lives had been erased in moments. He did not hide from pain. He absorbed it and transformed it into determination. In one of his most famous speeches, he declared, "We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender." Those words hardened the nation's spine. British pilots, young, exhausted, outnumbered, rose into the skies daily, defending their homeland. Churchill honored them with immortal words. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. Slowly, painfully, the tide turned. America had not yet entered the war, but Churchill worked tirelessly to win its support. He forged a bond with President Franklin D. Roosevelt, built on mutual respect and shared values. Supplies flowed. Hope returned. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in 1941, the United States joined the war. Churchill wept, not from fear but from relief. Britain was no longer alone. The war stretched on for years. Millions died. Entire nations were scarred forever. Churchill aged visibly under the weight of responsibility. He slept little, smoked constantly, and carried the war in every breath. But he never allowed despair to win. Finally, in 1945, Allied forces pushed into Germany. Hitler was defeated. Europe was freed. Victory came, but it was not joyful. Churchill looked at the cost and mourned the dead. He understood that triumph did not erase suffering. Part 4: Victory, Loss, and Legacy. In July 1945, something unexpected happened. After leading Britain through its greatest war, Winston Churchill lost the general election. The nation he had saved chose a different future. One focused on rebuilding, not fighting. Churchill accepted the result with dignity, though the wound was deep. He once said, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." He continued. Churchill remained a global voice for freedom. He warned the world of new dangers. famously speaking of an Iron Curtain dividing Europe. He wrote history, earning a Nobel Prize in literature. He returned once more as Prime Minister in his later years, though age had slowed him. On January 24, 1965, Winston Churchill died at the age of 90. The world mourned. Leaders from across the globe gathered to honor him. Britain stood still as his coffin passed. A man once dismissed as a failure was now recognized as one of the greatest leaders in human history. He was not perfect. He made mistakes. He faced defeats. But when darkness threatened to consume the world, he stood unbroken. Winston Churchill proved a timeless truth. Great leaders are not born without fear. They are forged by it.